Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Diversified Semantic Layer. Today we are joined by Henrique Pinto from Brazil, Brazilian royalty and former soccer star. Today we have decided that we are not going to speak about football. In my hands, for
Yeah,
those watching, I have an Australian
definitely
football
not.
for the Socceroos, and I'm going to throw that. I think I've just broken something, but that's gone down a story. So football's off the cards. Henrique, welcome to the DS Layered. Just a little bit about yourself. I think it's the first time you've been with the guys or been with us
Yeah,
in the podcast series.
it's
I know
true.
you with SAP now. Oh, it's long overdue. You with SAP now, so just a little bit about yourself so people can get an understanding what your background is.
No, yeah, actually, if I was SEP before and I left and came back, right? So if you take the whole time I've been at SEP for almost 8 years now. So my background, I was a technical consultant for a long time. So I've been in all those consulting big ones, not all of them, but Bearing Point and a couple of others here in Brazil, which were big here, but might not be in the worldwide picture. But back in 2007, I was invited by SAP to join them, and I started as a product manager for a integration solution called electronic invoicing for Brazil at the time, and that was my start at SAP, and I've been there now, as I mentioned, for 7.5 years, and in the last 4 years I have been fully engaged in working in the SAP HANA space. So going from everything from the database technology aspects up to the functional discussions regarding whether it's BI or Suite on HANA or any other of those functional conversations. I am working in that space as a business developer in the global HANA COE. And that's
Good.
basically my job right now.
And also one of the SAP mentors as well,
Oh yeah, I
representing in
forgot.
Brazil.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think we are six now or seven, I'm not sure. I think we have a alumni now, but yes, I've been an SAP mentor since 2011. I think that's it.
Yeah.
And mostly, I think I was nominated. I mean, you have to ask Mark Finner for that, but I think I was nominated because of my SCN presence and my work, particularly in the Portuguese community, which is very active right now. So we basically built it from scratch back in 2009. It's an awesome community right now. It's working on their own. We are having the first, uh, probably the second non-São Paulo SAP Inside track in a couple months in São Leopoldo. That's where the SAP Labs in Brazil is. It's all the way to the south, close to
I'm still
Argentina.
wa-
But
I'm I'm still waiting for
yes.
my invite, by the way.
Uh, you have not been okay. That's a flaw of not having a mentor organizing. Just kidding, man. Uh, I'm sure every mentor is gonna be. I mean, we are still figuring out the details, and they have just set the date and the venue. It's gonna be in the SAP Labs offices anyway, but I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of space for the mentors to bring their whole expertise, especially on the innovation topics such as BI and HANA, and I'm sure you're knowledgeable about.
So, just in terms of today, we're talking about archiving and not football. And I was just from a BW point of view, what's your experience from the BW perspective? Because I think for those who listen know that I don't come from a classic BW world. I obviously I speak extensively on the archiving options for BW, but have you come
Yes.
from a BW technical side?
I have not. I was not a actual BW consultant back in my consulting days. So if that's the question, but I mean, I have joined SAP for a while now, right? And I have worked for more than 2 years in the pre-sales team in SAP, and so the technology pre-sales team basically handles everything that we used to call the NetWeaver platform. So
Yeah.
Portal, PI, and BW was of course there. So I did all that BW Academy, all of those courses, and I also have had a lot of BW architecture discussions. So I have not been the guy that has actually gone in and implemented a BW project from scratch end to
Yeah.
end, but I can sustain pretty much the deepest conversations that you want to have.
That's you safer than me because I basically go as far as setting up a secondary database connection and then going to what's it RSRT and running some reports to compare. That's about as far as my DFBW hands-on experience goes. Okay, so the point of today's call was end of last year. I did quite a bit of Ethan Jurt and I did some extensive work around setting up nearline storage between a SQL Server BW system and IQ, and then we had a follow-up call with SAP in terms of future state roadmap pricing, which is always topical, which we try to avoid on the show. But it's been probably close on a year, I think, since we've touched that. So hence me inviting Henrique today just to sort of touch base to see where we are. I know a lot's happened in terms of extended tables coming, smart data access.
Yes.
And that's obviously what we're going to try to cover today, just for the listeners. I will put links to the original 2 podcasts or any SAP notes or documents that we refer to, so that anybody who's interested can look. So Henrique, let's just start off with NLS. I'm not going to go into the depth of what nearline storage is. There are other 2 podcasts for that. But when we last sort of touch base in the community, it was you had to be on 7.3 SP9, I think it was, to have BW connect to Sybase IQ in terms of being part of the secondary database connection. This has changed by all accounts. There's an SAP note that you did send me going back to Service Pack 7. Anything else you can sort of just add to that?
It's 7.0, so it's for any version. It's for any version, also 7.0, 7.1, 7.3, and 7.4. They all support NLS now.
That's brilliant. And for those, as I said, I will put the link, but the SAP notes 1858550. So if you want to look that up now. Now, just in terms of the NLS, I know the Unicode conversion, just hearing from the BW people, is quite a big thing, especially if they wanted to go to HANA. I noted in the SAP note that you had to have gone through the Unicode conversion. Just share, I mean, as to the layman that I am, share your light on the Unicode conversion. Is it necessary? Will it stop customers? What's your opinion?
Point is that Unicode conversion is a huge topic in any database migration project, not just BW, right? But in particular in a data warehouse project where data is your main asset, that's where it becomes even more important, because you cannot have you need to be extra careful there. There is not a limit on how careful you can be there, and that's why Unicode conversion is such a huge topic, especially talking about BW migration projects. But I'd say that the effort of migrating, of converting a non-Unicode BW system to a Unicode should not be from a, let's say, technical complexity larger than a ERP non-Unicode system, for example. The point is that BW has much more data, so consequently, it's going to take much more time. Yeah. So, and the longer it takes, the more chance you have to have flaws and errors. So that's the point. So that's why you need to be extra careful and to be sure what you're doing. And when you do find an error or let's say mismatch or something like that, you need to make sure what's the decision you're going to take to make sure that the data that you're converting is accessible in the right format in the target system. So that's why Unicode conversion, in my point of view, is really important for BW, but I mean, it would be important in any database migration systems, SAP and non-SAP, because, I mean, and the point right now is, why does SAP HANA or any newer systems from SAP require Unicode? I mean, you have not asked that, but I'd like to answer it. And the point is that...
I was about to. I was going to...
I mean, you have several different advantages of doing that. First is language support, right? So if you want to support languages like the non-Latin characters, languages like Chinese and Cyrillic and Russian and all Arabic, all those languages require a Unicode database. So I mean, even if you're not supporting that language, but you have data coming from systems that have the language, you need to be able to understand and interpret that information. So you need to make sure that that's not gonna show in your reports as garbage. You need to understand that.
So just to hammer home that point, you know, I've always been quite open about saying if you're an SAP customer, you will be running HANA at some stage. you need to go through the Unicode conversion if you're going to run HANA.
Yes.
For BW. And
Yes.
In conversations I've had with a lot of
prereq of the migration process, yes.
And a lot of conversations.
The point is, if you look for sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying a lot of conversations I've had with customers when their BW system is so massive that they've almost laid up a standalone instance of a HANA and BW and started from fresh, rather than go through the huge migration project. Is that common, or is that just the conversations I've had?
No, the point is that, as I mentioned, I mean, depending on the volume of data, it can really take really long, and that's what the customers don't want to go through, because it basically means that their system is going to be unavailable for a really long window of time. So that unavailability time is what they don't want to have, and that's what they try to avoid, going through alternatives. So the good thing about migrating to HANA specifically, SAP has come up with this procedure called the DMO, Database Migration Option, as an option of the Software Update Manager. So if you are doing an upgrade from, let's say, BW 7.3 to 7.4 on HANA, and classically you'd have to do the upgrade, do a Unicode conversion if it was a non-Unicode system, and then do the database migration with a heterogeneous system copy. So basically you had 3 long steps there. All of them passable of having their own type of errors, their own type of flaws, and so in the end of the day, it was really prone to failure. And SAP has come up with this one single step process. It's called the DMO, where you actually don't need to run a full Unicode conversion prior to the migration. You need to do a preset. Actually, and there's this really cool document in SCN about DMO written by Roland Kramer. If you don't know the guy, I mean, you should look up for the documents he creates. They're awesome. And so the GMO option is going to allow you to not necessarily run the full Unicode conversion prior to the migration. You can only run a pre-Unicode conversion, like preparation or pre-steps of the actual conversion. And the database migration is going to run the conversion at the same time it's running the migration. So it's really trees, and also going to do the upgrade of the application server. So it's really 3 steps in one single process. It simplifies and avoids a lot of possible flaws that you'd have in the process. It's really the best practice that we can suggest for customers wanting to upgrade, migrate, and potentially convert non-Unicode to Unicode systems going into a HANA BW system.
Correct. I will find that link to that SCN document.
Do you want me to can I share it somehow?
If I have it if you just send me the link, I can put it into the show notes, and then people can dive it on.
I'm gonna do it later. Yeah, I can do it later.
Cool. Just do it later. Yeah. Thanks. I just want to, in terms of nearline storage for archiving, I know with SAP it's difficult not to get onto the HANA topic, but if you're not running HANA, as it stands now, nearline storage or archiving to disk are your only 2 real options, right?
Sorry, go again.
No, I'm saying if you're a non-HANA customer running BW, for data archiving, we've either got nearline storage, which can archive into IQ, and I think there's some other products as well, or you can archive onto sort of file systems, so to speak. Those, for a non-HANA customer, are your 2 archiving options, correct?
No, basically the NLS API is there since BW 7.0, right? So the API was there since, 7.0, which was released like 6 years ago. So it was already there, available even before HANA existed. The point is that SAP really didn't push hard for it before, because we were not a database company, so we didn't have a full end-to-end solution for that. So there were partners like PBS, for example, that developed their own solutions on top of that API to connect and consume that, or let's say to implement that cold data concept using their own database solutions. Coincidentally or not, PBS used Sybase IQ as the persistence layer for their NLS solution. and that's the closest to the SAP standard, let's say, implementation of the NLS concept that we have now. So SAP Sybase IQ for BW NLS is our standard solution for an API that's open and then can be consumed by any customer can implement their own or any partner solution that exists in the market, which are plenty. Yes.
So anybody who listens to this podcast knows that I'm the biggest Sybase IQ groupie in the world. So if you want performance, stick with IQ. That's my shameless plug. In terms of when we spoke to Don and Udav and those guys, I think the middle of last year, I can't really remember. There was obviously there were two key topics for in my perspective. It was a backward compatibility, which has now been achieved, which is great. And then there was one of the key points is for the nearline storage, the data has to be read-only and it can't be written. So it can only be archived once you completely finish with it.
Yes.
There was talk of at that stage doing read capability into the nearline storage archive. Is that going to happen, or is that, that you're aware of, is that going to be catered for extended tables, which we'll get to just now?
So everything that I say here, it's based on my personal opinion, right? So it's me. It's what I do. It's what I do daily. So I don't have an online visibility of what the development team is coming up right now. But I mean, we do have frequent interactions with those guys, and I'd say I'm pretty much in sync with what they're trying to do. But everything that I state here might be. I mean, it might change. It's planned or anything like that, right? So my point of view is that the NLS API, even before HANA existed, it was never built for read and write. I think the whole concept was built on the idea of removing overload from BW primary database and loading it to a secondary database that would be accessed less frequently, more sporadically, and depending on the type of query or the type of the objects that you were loading into the NLS container, let's say. I'm not necessarily IQ, could be IQ, but not necessarily. And and the point is that my thought, I have never heard or read this officially, but my understanding is that it was never built to be read and write. The concept of code data, I mean, it should be historic code data, really that kind of data that you don't need to change anymore. Not just you don't need to change. I mean, really, you're just keeping it for historical or legal reasons, like some legal reports that you need to be able to generate data from 5 or 10 years ago, something like that, and you need to keep it on your BW system, but you don't need to keep it on your primary database. That's the point. And I mean, I'm not sure how do you want to do this, but what SAP has come up with as an answer to that, let's say, gap or lack of functionality is what I say is the new concept within the multi-temperature data strategy for BW, or let's say for HANA data warehouse strategy, because BW is part of the data strategy, of the data management strategy for HANA as the data warehouse layer. But what SAP has come up now is this 3-layer concept where you have cold data, you have hot data, but you have a middle layer, which we call warm or non-active concept data, which is basically data that is physically not residing in the primary database, but logically it is in the primary database. And if you want to, I can go into more details on that. I mean, I'm talking about the extended storage concept. Yeah,
so in terms of the, I can put that up. I'll put the slide up as well on the DS Lab post. It's actually quite a nice one pager that SAP have put together. But it's pretty much dumbing it down, I guess. It's data that's physically stored in the HANA platform, but it's not sitting in memory. Correct?
Exactly.
Now let's assume someone wants to do a select star from a table, which we never want to do, but it accesses data that's in memory, but let's say data that's 3 years old, that's non-active data. Will that need to be, from a HANA DBA point of view, would that need to manually be put into memory, or will the HANA platform automatically do that?
No, not at all. I mean, that's the point of the extended storage layer on top of the FDA API. It's what
Hmm.
creates this management logic, let's say. So all the logic behind that, all the management work that needs to be done to manage which data is where, that's done by HANA and BW. So the DBA, the users, the basis guys, they don't need to worry about that. It's going to be handled by the platform. That's the idea of the extended storage concept. So we took the Smart Data Access API, which was already there for
Yeah.
any for HANA to be able to access any databases, including IQ, right? So we took that, and specifically on top of IQ, we built a management framework where we make it transparent to the application layer where the data is physically residing. And imagine it as a multi-partition table where you have
Hmm.
several partitions, and some partitions are physically in memory, and some partitions are physically in disk. I mean, the database management system is going to handle and manage how to retrieve the data properly and assemble the data set, the result set properly to give it back to the application layer. And that handwork is completely transparent to the application.
So
That's the difference of the NLS concept, where all the management work was done by the application layer.
correct. So I mean, extended tables to me is great because it puts the grunt where it should be on the database tier, and I understand why NLS is there, and because SAP were never a database company, so that made sense.
Exactly.
So the question is that you could have one table. You could have part of the data set in memory in HANA, part of the data set on disk in HANA but not loaded, and then really old data hypothetically in IQ on disk, and the extended tables will deal with the hot, warm, and cold of that.
Yes, yes. I mean, the load unload of data within HANA, because HANA is a system built to have the 100% of the data should be loaded in memory. What you can
Correct.
do, you can unload data from memory that you are not frequently accessing, because then your amount of data you have in memory is lower, and the results should be even faster for the data that is actually in memory. So you don't need to have 100% of your data in memory if you don't access it frequently,
Yep.
but if you want to have your system, your HANA system built or sized to hold, let's say, 3 or 5 years of data, you need to have enough memory to have 3 or 5 years of data there. You cannot use the load or unload strategy as a sizing alternative to reduce the sizing of HANA and say, okay, so let's take 5 years of data in HANA, but let's put only 1 year worth of memories, and the rest is going to be unloaded in disk, and we can unload and load depending on the requirements of the queries. That's not going to work, because in the end of the day, if you can potentially have 5 queries up in parallel that could consume 100% of your data set. If that
Yeah.
occurs, you're not going to have enough memory to solve all the queries. And I'm not going to say the system is going to crash, because HANA has built-in functionality to avoid that. But it's going to take much more time, because in the end of the day, it cannot make magic. It's going to work like other databases do. It's going to basically do disk swap. And you don't want to do disk swap in an in-memory database. That defeats the whole purpose. So the point here is that if you want to properly size your BW system, you should have enough memory to have everything in memory in case you require it. BW is going to be intelligent enough to unload data that you're not accessing frequently, so that the random access to the memory, because that's RAM, right? Random access memory. It's going to be faster if you have less data loaded in memory. So the results are going to be better, but it's not that you can use it as a strategy to reduce the overall size of the HANA box that's going to support your BW. So for that particular requirement, so if you really want to say, okay, so I don't need to have 100% of my historical data in memory, then that's where you start to look into multi-temperature strategies and talk about cold data through the NLS API, or warm data through the extended storage.
Extended storage, does that, because to me, one of the beauties of the NLS, and I know it's dealt with by the application tier is it automatically archives the data for you based on a date dimension or a transaction number or whatever it is. With extended storage being driven by the database, can you determine what you want as your archiving filter, so to speak, and then it'll archive it from in memory down into IQ onto disk?
First of all, the configuration whether you want to have a particular BW object as an extended table or 100% HANA table, it's done from, for BW in particular, it can be done from the application layer. So, for example, if you are modeling a DSO object, which is, let's say, a corporate memory DSO, right optimized DSO, and you want to have that, okay, so probably this is something that I'm not going to access frequently. I probably want to put this in IQ. You don't need to go to the database and set that table to be extended. You go through the BW modeling layer, you go into the DSO management interface, and there's a nice flag. It's really a flag. I can send you a link with that as well. It's a flag where you say, okay, this DSO is going to use an extended table. So the application layer, when it creates the table, the DDL is done by the application layer, right? But the DDL, right, tells the database system, in this case HANA, that's going to use a extended table. And then HANA does the whole work to create the, let's say, multi-partitions of the table. And how, now if you want to go through the whole point of how I'm going to partition that, it's going to be a range partition, hash partition, then yes, that's done on the database layer. That's usually what the DBA is going to do. And you can search for table partitions in HANA, you can search for some nice documents. I can send you the link later as well about table collocation in HANA. That's there. That's a database feature, not necessarily related to BW, but which is going to be leveraged in this particular use case.
So just for the non-BW people, DSOs are data store objects. So I'll data stores in the enterprise data warehouse. No, So in terms of extended tables for the non-BW people, because we've left them out so far, this has been a BW conversation. Extended tables to me, for me at the moment for hot and cold, I use Smart Data Access, and I think it's a great solution, works well, federates well, and the nice thing about that, it can open up lots of other third-party databases, not only sort of HANA and IQ. If you want to look at a HANA customer that's non-BW, just say a enterprise data warehouse customer who's running HANA, but they want to extend some data down into IQ because of the the archiving concept. Will the sort of the partitioning between the two tiers, so let's say for example we extended credit table sales and we extend it down into IQ. We want current year in memory and the rest in disk. Is that available? Is that in the roadmap to automatically sort of archive data for you between extended tables for non-BW customers?
So extended storage, extended storage is the concept. The extended table are the objects that they implement. Yeah. The extended storage concept is there in HANA in a restricted availability manner since SPS7.
I've seen it in the studio.
Yes. And so it's been there since SPS7. What happens is that the only application that's allowed to use it, because it's in a restricted availability release so far, the only application allows to use it is BW. So let's say BW is kind of the pilot customer of extended storage, and what they have been doing with the latest SAP BW release is they have been, let's say, testing this functionality and leveraging how it could be improved and made better. And what's planned, and now this is roadmap, what's planned is that it's going to be generally available to other applications as well on SPS9. So that's the plan so far, which is planned to be released in November later this year.
As much as I love the Smart Data Access concept for now, the negative for me, and I've always said this, is that you're actually manually moving data yourself. So there's ETL involved. And you move data from hot to cold, and then you've got a recon. Then you've got a hash totals count, and you yourself, especially with a retailer where there's no end of day, when do you move data? It all gets quite complicated. Late data coming in.
Yes.
So, and those are challenges we face throughout the years. But if you could have your database tier do that archiving for you through the extended storage, then it solves a whole lot of problems. And it
Point is
becomes
that
very...
SDA. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, what I was going to say is that SDA, in my point of view, has two different use cases. One of them is the multi-temperature strategy, and then you are right. If you have the interface, the API, without the data movement strategy in place or the data movement tools in place to support you with that, and you need to do that all those ETL jobs manually, it's going to be a nightmare. And I agree with you. That's why SAP has come up with the whole extended storage concept. But the other point is that SDA is also there for all of those cases where data was never in HANA in the first place. Imagine you have this complete transactional system that's completely built on a separate database, Sybase ASE or DB2 or Oracle or anything else, and it's there and it's been there for a while. It's going to be there for a long time. But you might want to consume some of those tables in some of that data of those legacy systems into your reports. I mean, back in the day, to do that, you'd have to implement let's say, to create a customized objects in BW for your custom DSOs, custom cubes, and actually do ETL from the legacy system into BW, and you'd basically replicate the data. And that's what SAP is going against right now with this whole logical data warehouse concept, right? So SDA, for me, is the heart and soul of the logical data warehouse concept that HANA has been so much praised about. I mean, if you look at what Gardner is saying about the differentiators of HANA, LDW, the capability to actually implement LDW for the first time in the market, that's one of the most praised functionalities of the HANA platform. And for me, that's the core functionality of SDA. Of course, it's enabling your extended tables functionality. That's one thing. And the second thing is to actually be an interface to implement the logical data warehouse concept, where you never had data movement in the first place because your data was never in HANA in the first place. It was always in the legacy system, but you still wanted to consume that data without replicating it, without having the whole ETL part. So that's what you would do with SDA. You'd basically create virtual tables in HANA, and now with BW 7.4, you can consume those virtual tables in OpenODS in BW and consume it in the regular BW modeling paradigm with cubes and your providers and everything.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's
yes.
Because I mean, the whole SDA concept stops the whole enterprise. In my world, it's basically create a data store dump of all your source systems and then start modeling from there. You're a couple of months down the line before having access to those tables generally, historically, which is pretty exciting. Listen, Henrique, I'm gonna have to cut us now because I've got to run a webinar in 10 minutes. So to everybody listening, we will be wearing different clothes hopefully next time we record when we finish this up. Hello everybody, we are back with another version of Better Bob J. The soccer ball, I promised you it's back. I'm sorry, Henrique, it's gone again. And you've seen that I've wrecked my house again. So hopefully we can keep the flow of where we were. I just had to run a quick Better Bob J webinar, so now we're back into conversation. I've just jotted down a few more points for us to sort of wrap up the conversation, if you don't mind. From the extended storage, extended tables, when are we looking to go from a BW? I know you mentioned for enterprise data warehouse, people are looking at SP9 end of this year, hopefully. Is this for a BW customer to use extended storage? Is this GA now? Can they implement it now? And if they can, what versions of HANA do they need to be on? And IQ, I'm assuming 15.4 or higher.
It's not really, let's say, 100% GA. It is still a restricted availability release. So, but that's from a database perspective, from what I understand. So, point is, for BW customer, it is available. But for other applications or for your custom applications, It's not.
Mhm.
So that's where the restrictive part comes into place. So BW, you can use it. But even for BW, the way I understood, it's also a restrictive release from a usage perspective. So if you're a BW customer, you want to use the functionality, you have to request special authorization. Even if all the binaries are there, you need to request special authorization for SAP. They're going to study your case and let you use it or not, depending on the situation. So
So
there is a note that explains about that. I can send you the number of the note. You should have sent me all the questions beforehand, so I have prepared myself with all the number by heart, like you did before. But I can send you the number of the note later.
we try to keep these webinars informal, so I don't think we've ever had an agenda ever. Um, so safe to say, hopefully SP9 will be sort of GA end of this year. If people are planning as an archiving strategy going forward, and they are looking at HANA in the whole picture, big picture, from a BW perspective.
Sorry, go again. Didn't get a question.
Okay, sorry. I said, so if people are planning ahead for an archiving strategy,
Okay.
whether they're on HANA now or looking at HANA or looking at the road ahead, safe to say, hopefully by the end of this year with SP9, all the functionality should be GA and ready to go from an
Oh yes.
extended storage point
So
of view.
what I'd suggest is, as a phase one approach, I mean, this is going to be a phased approach anyways, right? You're not gonna just split your database into several different, let's say, pieces and do it from night to day. So you're gonna just do this in a phased approach anyway. So as a phase one or first step, I'd suggest you start with the code data layer of the multi-temperature strategy because that's right in place. So NLS is there, it's already GA for a long time. So I'd suggest you have IQ in place as an architecture, have the NLS set up, and then the nice thing about that is that the extended storage functionality can leverage the same infrastructure, the same IQ instance, to be clear, that you are using for NLS can also be used for extended storage. If you want to, of course, you can also use separate instances. The good thing about that is that you can leverage the same infrastructure already have in place. You don't need to invest in any newer infrastructure, just to scale the one you already have. And from a administration perspective, what's nice about SP9 that's coming later this year is that the DPAs are going to be able to monitor and do actual database management activities like backup, hopefully not restart, but that also request snapshots, monitor and maintain resource management, so CPU, memory, disk, whatever. You can do that from one single interface. So you're going to be able to use HANA Studio to maintain both IQ and HANA transparently. And that's, I mean, but that's an addition on already existing features. So again, I'd start as with NLS as the first step, and seamlessly in time until the end of the year, you're going to be able to add extended storage on top of the same infrastructure just to activate it, and also to be able to leverage HANA's interfaces to maintain and manage both HANA and IQ transparently. So it's really going forward looking like one single platform. Even though it's still physically two separate databases, they are going to do a first level integration with the management interfaces, and in time, the plan is that IQ and HANA are gonna become one single system.
So, I mean, that's good to know, because the advice I generally or always give customers is who are waiting for extended storage. I'm saying, my perception is if you install IQ now, you can re-sweat the assets if you're going to change archiving strategies later. Also, you can start building up the in-house skills and the ability and the hardware and all the teething problems that you're going to have with new technology when it's new. You can, that investment's not going to be wasted because it's very much part of SAP's strategy. So
Exactly.
That's kind of the advice I tend to give.
On the contrary, the strategy was exactly based on the fact that we didn't want to have any of our customer resources went into waste. So it was thought exactly to leverage the existing infrastructure that was already there in place with HANA and IQ.
And just from a monitoring point of view, coming from a Sybase IQ world, anybody who's been in the Sybase space knows that the Sybase Central and the monitoring tools were non-existent and shocking. Generally you use third-party products. I mean, Bradmark was quite sort of well used. So it's really good to know from that perspective that SAP are bringing in the monitoring and the DBA admin side and stepping it up, because it's always been a bit lean on the Sybase side, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, it's gonna be part of the HANA integration perspective, and even furthermore, it's also gonna be. I mean, being part of the HANA, I mean, it is gonna be perceived as a HANA asset from a management perspective, even though it's physically separately. And
yeah.
in that regard, you're also even gonna be able to leverage other corporate solutions like Solution Manager, which is already in place for so many SAP customers, which are already used to using Solution Manager as their central administration and monitoring interface. It's also gonna be leveraged as a interface to monitor HANA, and in that regard, IQ as well.
Brilliant. Okay, I just want to change tack to Smart Data Access now.
Cool.
And one point I want to clarify with you is, I think it was an SB7. You had the ability to do update statements to your virtual tables,
yes,
whether it be
yes.
SQL Server, IQ.
Read and write capabilities for SDA was included in SB7. Yes.
Correct. I mean, I personally haven't tested. It's something I do want to test, but is that supported across all the databases that are being able to be linked through SDA? Because for me, if you're thinking about the future state of BI and an Access app running on the HANA platform, if you have all the logic built in there to be able to update your cold store through one application is really compelling again.
Yes. I mean, I have not read anything that contradicts that. So my understanding is that read and write is available for all the databases that are supported by SDA, which in SPS 8 has included DB2 and TSS supported databases.
So for those of you, if you listen to this, there's a Better Bob J webinar running, and we're almost finishing it up. It's been running for the first 6 months. I'm doing the data archiving topic, and what I'll do is I'll build into my live demo, I'm putting pressure on myself, is the updatability to IQ, because it's something I need to test. So tune into our webinar next week, so to speak. Henrique, something we try avoid as nerds is licensing, but I just wanted to kind of, talk about how IQ is bundled as part of an offering. Obviously you want to talk pricing, but if you're a BW and HANA customer, or you're going onto HANA, my understanding is that the IQ as part of your NLS solution or your cold store is included as part of the offering. Is that correct, or have I lost the plot?
Oh yeah, definitely. So if you're a BW HANA customer, you have already licensed one of the two existing HANA license models for BW, and those licenses include the right to use IQ for NLS.
And will that?
So I don't. I think I know your next question. I'm not sure that's going to be extended storage, so that needs to be addressed by the pricing team. It's probably going to be addressed before the GA of SPS 9. But I mean, my understanding is that yes, it would be part of it, because at least for VW customer, that is, because it is a runtime of an SAP application. If you are a customer that's not using BW as your data warehouse, but still wanted to leverage the IQ extended storage capability on top of HANA, the point is that SAP. So you know that we have two different type of licenses, right? I mean, you'd have went through this, but we have the full use licenses and runtime licenses. So runtime is basically for SAP applications. Suite, ERP, or BW, those kind of applications, they have their own runtime type of licenses. But you also have the full use editions, which can be from the base edition up to the enterprise edition. And the difference there is which options are bundled in the license that you purchase. So the base edition comes with the vanilla database and the database specific functionalities like store procedures, even the OLAP engine is bundled there. But other more advanced options like predictive analytics library, spatial, the geospatial library, and the capability to use extended storage in particular, it's called, they are all separate in different options. So there is this particular option called multi-tier data option for HANA, which is basically IQ for HANA. So my understanding is that customers which are not using SAP applications, that includes BW, and which are going to want to leverage the extended storage functionality, they will need to purchase that option on top of HANA.
So here's another hypothetical question. Let's assume, extended tables is not there yet. So I've got a customer who's non-SAP, so they're a SQL Server shop, and they've decided to put their data warehouse into in-memory. Running fine, they're running out of space now, and they want to use a data archiving strategy, so they're looking at smart data access. Is there a way for them, so basically it's HANA IQ business objects on top. Is there a way for them to get a runtime license of IQ if it's only using data coming out of HANA, or would that be a separate purchase of IQ, so to speak?
So this multi-tier option that I just mentioned about is like a special license of IQ just for the usage of HANA. So it's also measured by the number of cores that your IQ box has, but the price per core is much lower than the full IQ license. So if you're using it with HANA as part of the RTDP, the real-time data platform, it's lower than the regular price for IQ, the standalone IQ, let's say.
Okay, great. Because I know Last was at Jane Landry about a year ago, released those analytic bundles with business objects, data services, IQ, and they really, really dumbed down the price of IQ, so it was next to nothing compared to the old list price from Sybase days, which is good to see. Just getting the sort of technology embedded.
Yeah, it's I'd say it's considerably lower than the standalone IQ license. I mean, the multi-tier data option.
Yeah. Okay. Henrique, I think that's it. For me, the road ahead's always tricky because there's only things you can and can't say in terms of roadmap. If I would like to summarize things, and just tell me if I'm wrong, is if you're a BW customer, don't be scared of going NLS IQ. It's worked. It's been around for, I guess, close than a decade, and it's gonna get a good strategy in place.
Oh yes, it's the
look
core
at extended
of strategy going on.
Cool. Extended tables are coming. So probably look at, from a planning point of view, look at end of the year to start implementing, once next sort of financial or next year kicks off, calendar year. So if you're a enterprise data warehouse customer, and my folks, extended tables could be coming, but smart data access is a great solution for now if you're running HANA.
Oh yeah, and again, SDA, it's a physical interface. It's an API, right? And you can build your own strategy, your own archiving strategy on top of it right now. And SAP is leveraging that same strategy. So the latest, if you check the latest support packages for BW, even NLS is leveraging SDA now as a physical interface instead of the old secondary database connection.
Oh, okay.
So it's if you are on BW on HANA, and that's only if you are on HANA, because SDA is only there if you have HANA, right? But if you're not, yes, you're going to go through the regular API. But if you are on HANA, you have the option to leverage SDA as the interface going into the IQ database. And it simplifies also because you don't need to maintain connections between the application layer and several different databases. Your application layer is also always gonna go through the HANA box, and the HANA does the communication through IQ when necessary.
Cool. Okay, so
But
Thank
the
you very
difference
much.
that is just to finalize. The difference there is that all the data handling management is still done by the application layer, not by the database layer, like in the extended storage concept.
Yeah.
That's the difference between both of them. So SDA as a technical interface, it's there. It can be used now. SAP is using it already, even for our own archiving strategy for NLS, and coming later this year an SP9 for extended storage as well. So yeah, definitely is. It's like let's say a phased. It's the first step of a phased approach. So going for NLS now makes 100% sense.
And your Guinness Book World Record when it was a 12.1 petabytes. I think that used SDA as well because it was IQ and HANA, right?
Yeah, it was a logical data warehouse with IQ and HANA. Yes.
Henrique, thanks so much for your time, mate. It's great to have you on the podcast, and thanks for signing in twice.
Sure.
Commiserations about the football.
I'm sorry it took a while to be able to make this happen, but it was awesome.
No, it's as I said, sorry about the football. I was supporting Brazil with all my heart this morning, but it just didn't go that way.
Yes.
For me, just to wrap up, guys, it's this is an exciting space. Okay, well, if you're a database nerd like I am, but without trying to sound like I'm drinking the SAP Kool-Aid here, if you think of what SAP are doing from an extended storage point of view, if you could have the benefits of in-memory columnar as well as disk columnar, take away all your, have that logical data warehouse concept running, but not have to worry about ETL reconciling and archiving and have the database engine do that for you. It's a hugely compelling message because no one really else in the industry, as far as I'm aware, has that ability and that power, and it really brings you in that position to collapse your organization. It's really exciting, and I, as a data person, I can see it working. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming early next year, late this year, and as always, please leave your comments in the comment stream and hit us up on Twitter, and we will try and answer your questions. Henrique, thanks again, mate. And
sure, anytime.
And Viva Hop Hop Holland for you, by all accounts.
Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV.